What's happening, fam? L.A.R movement still moving. Book entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father. Amazon Kindle Create Space. Link is always in the description box below. Why he leads and she follows. You know, I was listening to something that BGS Edmore said in one of his videos. He said, men are always ahead of the curve. Women are always behind the curve. And that's why to me, that's part of the root of why he leads and she follows. You see, when um, men are normally on the front lines. So who knows the battlefield better than the soldiers on the front lines? Who knows the ins and outs of the equation? Who can see and deals with and is boots on the ground, who feels the tension? The people on the front lines. Who are the first people to sense that, spirits are rising or spirits are broken, the people on the front lines. So that puts those people on the front lines ahead of the curve, when it pertains to their the people behind them. They know what's going on better than you because they're already there. And that's part of why he leads, because he was there first. He's saw how it breaks down. He's made the mistakes and corrected the mistakes, and he sees the upcoming mistakes, or has made the upcoming mistakes. So you're always a step behind. So if you're always a step behind, of course the person in front of you is going to lead, because you're always behind. That's the advantage of being on the front line. The disadvantage of being on the front line is, you're a step ahead, so you might catch the brunt of the negativity first too. So it protects the people behind you, because you're like, hey, not this way, already been there, we ain't going there, trust me, I just got out of there by the hairs of my chinny chin chin, and I'm not taking you there, and you're not following me there, because it's not a good look. Another reason why he leads and she follows is because of that experience. He's already emotionally processed it. Women come behind of what's already happened, and they emotionally processing something that has already happened to the person in front of them. And they say women are more emotional than men, and what I mean by that is this: it happened, he worked through it, bam. Now he's walking you through it. Now, and it's not happening to you as intensely, but it's happening to you, and now you're emotional about a past event in the present. So you're sorting out the past while he's sorting through the present, which once again leaves you a step behind. And I'm gonna point this out in this way. You notice, and because of that sorting out of between past and present, men are on the front line saying, "Oh, this is happening. This is what's going on next." And you like, no, 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 it's not, because I see what's going on, but you're not seeing the present. You're seeing the past. You're still sorting out the past. Now, I'm going to what I mean by that. Remember, men tell women all the time, like men were telling women, look, them Tyler Perry movies disrespecting y'all. No, they're not. And women were behind the curve. So then the years passing, like, these movies disrespectful. Yeah, we tried to tell you that already. You was ahead of the curve on you. You weren't listening. You were caught up in the emotion of thinking it was a good look when it wasn't. You know, um, men tell women about how society works. You don't know what you're talking about. I've already been down that road. Yes, I do know what I'm talking about. But no, 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 no. And then women come, you know, later on, and they're like, well, man, I had to learn that it's like this, 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 and this. And no, you actually didn't. You're already warned, but you want to go along that route anyways. Like when women talk about feminism, they're emotionally living in the past. Back in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, I don't know about 80s, but whatever. 90s, we treated women like this. It's like y'all are stuck in old emotions of old societies and old norms and old family structures that you weren't even told the whole stories up to, but you're reacting to them in the present when you may be 20, 30, 40, 50 years late. And guys are saying, what's going on now? Like I hear women talk about, women were abused and beaten and cheated on and blah, blah, blah. And they talk about the past, but they're not talking about the present. The men right now are talking about the present. So what's going to happen is when you catch up to this present, you're going to be older looking back like, this was the time where the women was out of line, but you were one of those women in this time watching the women out of line, but you were all living in the 80s, 70s, 60s, and 50s. This is how men are ahead of the curve and women are behind the curve. Because, this is one of guys, many men's warning about, when women talk about rape and molestation and abuse, we say, look, it's this new boyfriend that you picking, or it's your gay friend, or you keep dating strangers and letting them around the kids. And a lot of women say, people are getting people are getting raped by, their dads and their uncles and the family members, forgetting that y'all still in this emotional past of that was back when they used that conversation. It does not like that now. And on top of that, you're still in the mode where the dads are not in the house and men are not in the house and men are not in the community. So we're like, these ain't your dads and your uncles and your cousins. These are the guys that men are telling you about. Your boyfriends, your homosexual friends, maybe a pastor, or these strangers that you let into your children's lives. But because we are living in the present and we're seeing where these trends are going. Speaking of trends, following the trends is why we're ahead of the curve, because you know women are not necessarily abreast with history and how history works as far as like men. You know, women gravitate to trending, not the historic trends. Like they can't see foresight because they never studied the past. And when you're constantly living in the right now and the impulse, you're a short-term thinker. You're gonna always be uh, following anyways, because the person that leads you is going to be a long-term thinker, and what winds up happening is he leads because he's thinking long-term. You're thinking short-term, and when you're thinking short-term, you can only get through weeks, months at a time. You can't get through years or decades at a time because you have no plan. Your plan is to react to the immediate circumstance without looking at the bigger picture. So if you can't look at the bigger picture, how can you lead? You know what I mean is, he leads because he's a chess thinker, and you're following because you're a checkers thinker when it comes to life. And people say, no, 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 it's not like that. Actually, pretty much so is. This is why this is so many people have this Maria Antoinette vibe, that let just let them eat cake. It's all good because everything is happening in the now. You don't see the increase coming. You don't see the famine coming because you're not paying attention to the historic trends. You can't see what's beyond the horizon because you're not looking beyond the horizon because you're looking in the now. Past that, um, the men lead because, as we all know, men are going to be held to more responsible in a situation. And why are we more responsible in a situation? Because we can see, we can deal with the present and deal with the future simultaneously. So we're responsible for it. more responsible for it than the females in our lives who can only see the now. You know, and that's why, we had these conversations between men and women. You know, and women get it when dealing with other women. Like, don't do that because later on, like women's foresight on other women is spot on as foresight, but women's foresight on life is off outside of women. And what I'm saying is, men's foresight in life is on to a higher degree. On average, it's higher than a woman's foresight because of us having to do so much because we're held to such a higher standard. So if we held to a higher standard, not only do we have to be um, competent enough to maintain that standard, we have to be competent enough to be able to teach that standard to the next generation. So this is why men lead and women follow. Now, when you don't want to follow and you want to lead, it doesn't work well. Just saying.